Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside Story. Great to see so many people here. Welcome to new members, and hello, of course, to all our faithful book club attendees. I'm very excited to say that we've got a kind of Goldster double whammy. I'm just letting a few more people in because I'm joined today by someone who many of you may already know from her own Goldster classes. I'm joined by Susan Saunders, who is the author of these two books, The Age Well Project and The Age Well Plan. And we're going to be talking about both of them, about her writing career, and a little bit about her time on Goldster as well. So welcome, Susan. It's really lovely to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Lucinda. I'm so excited to be here. I feel very honoured to be invited.
Well, tell us first of all, so your first book was the Age Well Project. Tell us about that and what exactly it is and how it came about.
Okay, so the Age Well Project, the first book, I co-wrote with my friend Annabelle Street. You might know her as the fiction writer Annabelle Abbs. But this book has almost 100 tips and the scientific research to back them, ways to age well, based on our own research and what we put into practice in our own lives. So it's almost 100 tips, things to do. And how that came about, I have to take you back in time, nearly 20 years. So my journey to aging well, and my journey, which became a journey to becoming an author, though I didn't know that that's where it would end up, started almost 20 years ago when I was 36. I had a toddler and a newborn. I was working full time as a TV producer, and my mum was diagnosed with dementia. So I had to take on a role as a carer as well. And so that was a hell of a juggle and a hell of a shock. And I was very young to be dealing with that and had tiny children. And so that was a lot to take on. And as a teenager, I had watched my mum care for her mum who also had dementia. So I could see this pattern, and I thought I wanted to do everything I could to reduce the risk of my daughters being in the same position. So I started to look into the research around lifestyle and Alzheimer's and brain health and try and work out what actually made sense to me. Because if you read the headlines, you read all this stuff, which is, drink coffee, you'll live forever. Don't drink coffee, it will kill you. And you're like, God, what do I do? And I had so little time. It's like, how do I make this work in my life when I'm caring and working and all those things? So that was really what started me on the journey to aging well. And my friend Annabelle was in a similar position with a lot of family history of poor health and some health issues herself. And our daughters were at nursery together, and we would talk about what we'd read and what we were cooking and what we were eating and what we were trying to do ourselves. And from that point, we thought, let's write a blog. So 8 years ago, we started writing a blog, and it was really, to start with, just to keep ourselves on track and kind of give us a point that we had to reach each couple of weeks. We had to write something, so we had to be keeping up with the research. And our friends were always asking us things, so we thought, right, okay, we can put that on a blog. And didn't really think much beyond that, certainly for a couple of years. And then Annabelle had quite a bad accident, and when she was recovering, she said, why don't we try and turn the blog into a book? And I thought, oh God, poor Annabelle, she's so ill, and I'll do anything I can to try and make it a book, but I've got no idea what that might be. And she wrote, by that stage, had published a novel and or had a novel published, and so she wrote to some non-fiction agents, literary agents, and we'd written sort of 2 or 3 page brief about what a book based on the blog could be. And I sort of thought, oh, well, that's fine. Look, she's happy, we've done that, that's fine, we can just move on. And within 2 or 3 days, we had quite a few agents kind of calling us and emailing and saying, right, we want a meeting, this sounds great. And we were like, oh my God, I was, oh my God, like when the first one got back in touch, and it was amazing. And so we met some of these literary agents, which was a really interesting experience, and some were lovely and some were really horrible. And I was like, oh, okay, I thought we were kind of maybe offering you something that you wanted, but no, no, you're going to be really horrible about it. And then we settled on one. We settled on Rachel Mills, who was at the time at Lawton Furnish, and I thought this is the most amazing thing. It'll never get further than this. But I am 50 years old, and for the first time in my life, I have a literary agent.
Oh, fantastic. What a
And
great feeling.
yeah, and that was just great. I was just so made up by that. I thought that's sort of really fantastic. And then of course she wanted us to have a book to pitch, and so we wrote this little pitch saying, well, what do you think of this? Obviously needs lots of work. What do you think? She said, oh no, it's fine. I've sent it to loads of publishers. And then we had some publishers interested, and we got a book deal with Piatka. So so it was just sort of such an incredible thing to step into in midlife. That I didn't set out with the idea of being an author. I set out with the idea of wanting to age well myself and then wanting to share it. And so it really, the becoming an author grew out of that passion, rather than thinking, I have to write books. What am I going to write about? It sort of came the other way around.
Which is brilliant, because you were already doing something that you really loved. So how frequently did you used to update the blog? And was it very different when you were writing the book, or were you able to turn the blog quite easily into a book?
I have to say, I find writing books hell. I find it really hard.
That's very honest for you.
And yeah, sorry if you're an aspiring writer, you think it's going to be heaven. I found it, if you're watching, obviously, listen, you write loads of books, and maybe you love it. And also I had this kind of vision that I was writing a book with one of my best friends, and we would sit at each other's kitchen tables, sipping green tea and discussing what we might want to write about. And the reality was, it's still hell. You still need to sit at your own computer and put the hours in and just do it. Just write word after word. There was very little sitting around each other's kitchen tables, not least because Annabelle's really rigorous about not sitting, and about how being sedentary does not help us age well. So we would have these standing meetings, which actually make everything much quicker. I
think everyone should do that. As you say, people will be out of meetings so much more quickly. That should be implemented all over the world in workplaces. What a great idea.
Yes, I mean, some workplaces do have these sort of standing, like almost like a sort of bar area where you just stand around. But so we would sort of have these standing meetings, or we'd go for walks, or very occasionally we sat down with a laptop. But really, we did have to kind of just put the hours in. And I mean, I think what I really noticed, you asked about the difference between the blog and the book, was just how rigorous we had to be with the book and our scientific references and that sort of thing. Because although in the blog we refer to scientific research, we don't have numbered references in the blog, because that would be, we keep in our own notes, but actually we had to be completely rigorous and completely sure it was the most up to date, and you hadn't missed anything, and we hadn't misinterpreted the research. And as ordinary working women, we're not scientists, we're not doctors, and that's really the whole point of it, and how we wanted our own perspective on it. There are a lot of books published by doctors and scientific researchers, and they're great, but they're not living this life of healthy longevity with kids who only want to eat pasta, or coming home from work and thinking, I've got half an hour, what can I do? So our take has always been much more realistic and, I hope, accessible. So,
Yeah, it is very accessible. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm just going to hold it up again. You know, it's very easy to read, and it makes sense. So how did this lead on to this one, the Age Well plan?
okay. So
How
when
did
we
that?
were writing the project, I thought, this book writing thing is great, and I'm really enjoying it. But actually, I would like to be able to help people more directly, and more, on a more personal level. So I qualified as a health coach, and I now coach people one to one, and I coach courses, and that sort of thing. And I wanted to write a coaching guide, because the project is that sort of the what you need to be doing, and so the plan grew as the how to do it. It is your 6-week program to kickstart a longer, healthier, happier life. So it's 6 weeks, and each week focuses on one of the key pillars of aging well, and really focuses down on how you're going to make sense of it day by day, week by week. And it's got sections to journal, and it's got tick lists, and it's got shopping lists and more recipes, and a menu plan, and a pantry list, and kit lists, and it's much more practical kind of how to each day. And I mean, obviously the whole point of aging well is that you're going to do it forever, but this is the kind of 6-week kickstart. So I wanted it to be more of a coaching plan, and Annabelle's own writing career had gone really taken off by that stage, so she didn't sort of have the headspace to write a book like this. And because I had the coaching qualification by then, it made sense that I wrote that book on my own.
Was that a very different experience writing by yourself? Because you've been, I guess, cushioned a bit by this friend who'd done it before. Was it a better process or a more difficult process, or was it just different to be doing one on your own?
It was different. It was different. I mean, not that different, because, as I was saying, writing, it is just you and your words ultimately. If you are doing it with someone else, but it wasn't. I think it wasn't quite. I found it perhaps mentally and emotionally less taxing, because when we were writing the first one, I kept thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't write a book. And actually what sort of got me out of bed and writing was the thought that if I didn't, I would let Annabelle down, and she would be really pissed off if I didn't do what I was meant to.
Always a really great kind of mind fixer, isn't it, when you know someone's going to be cross with you?
Exactly. I thought I just didn't want to let her down. Whereas when I came to the second one, I had written a book, and that book we co-authored a book, and that book had done really well. So I sort of had that cushion, and also because the 6-week structure and what went into each section came together quite quickly, I was able to map that. I was able to map that. It's a very structured book, so I was able to map that out and then fill in the sections.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really good. So, what is your writing schedule like now? Because I know you're working on something else, which we'll talk about a bit later. But how do you make yourself do it, and how do you fit in your exercise times and those kind of things without being too sedentary?
Yes, it's interesting how my age well protocols and routines have come to fit around the writing, and the writing fits around those. It's sort of finding a way to keep active and allow time to exercise. And when you're doing anything, you're working from home in any way, I think it's very easy just to sort of roll out of bed to the computer and sit. And I really try not to do that. And I have experimented a lot. I've experimented with getting up and writing from 8 till 10 and then doing stuff. And occasionally that works. And that's good in a way, but then I find it hard to motivate myself then to go and exercise. So what I have come down to, which seems to be working for me at the moment, is that I start writing at 9. The clock kind of dings at 9. There's an alert on my phone. And that's when whatever I'm doing, whatever else seems pressing, stops, because anyone who wants a reply to an email can wait for 3 hours. But before 9, if I get up just after 7, I try to exercise then. Either I go to the gym, or I walk the dog, or I run with the dog. And so what I try and get done before I start writing is some sort of exercise, even if it's just walking. And really importantly, getting outside to get morning light. I think that for me has become one of my key age well practices, to get daylight first thing, because that it wakes up your brain, getting that blue light from the sun, even if it's cloudy and drizzly. And also it kickstarts the circadian rhythms in our body, which will tell our body in 12-14 hours time it's time to get sleepy. And if you haven't kick-started that off at the beginning of the day, it's not going to happen at the end of the day.
That's a great tip for everybody to take away with them. Get out first thing in the morning, outside if you can.
Yes, and I know I don't sleep as well if I haven't done that. So I kind of give myself till 9 to exercise, get some daylight, fresh air, and probably prepare a bit of breakfast, which I will eat later, because I try and do quite a long overnight fast. That intermittent fasting, or time restricted eating, which is a more accurate term, is again an important age well protocol for me. So I try not to
talk us through that. When do you try and eat by in the evening, and when do you start in the morning? What's that how long do you like to leave the gap?
I'm not one of those people who can have dinner at 5:30 or 6 p.m. My husband's not home from work till about 7:30, so it's quite rare to eat before 7:30. So, but I try and make sure I finish eating by 8:30, and then I try and have an overnight fast of about 14 hours, because that allows your body to rest and digest. And as we get older, we want our bodies to repair, and they can't do that if they're digesting, because digestion is a really big job for our bodies. It's really, really important. So the emphasis, if there's food in the system, our body will always emphasize the digestion process, and not the repair process. So we want to be in a state of repair when we can be, because that's we're getting older, things are wearing out, we need repair to be happening. So I try and leave it at sort of 15 hours. I'm trying to push it later. It doesn't always work, but I try and make myself something to have, soak some oats and chia seeds and that sort of thing, have some fruit ready. I don't eat it, I just leave it in the kitchen soaking and doing its thing, and then 9 o'clock, bang, okay, what are we doing today? Let's go.
Brilliant.
And I just try and move every half an hour or so. If I feel my concentration waning, I'll get up and walk around, or just do a few sits to standing. When you're just sitting on your chair and you just bring yourself up and go down again, bring yourself up and go down again. Just anything to move around, or stretch a bit, or anything.
It's a bit like when you're on an airplane and you're supposed to do those kind of like buttock clenching and foot rolling and all those kind of things.
Yes, exactly. In the plan there is a desk side exercise routine, which is exactly those sort of things, leg stretches and circles and things.
And for those of you who aren't at desks, you don't get away with it, because even if you're watching TV or watching Goldster, you can still do as well.
Yes, exactly. We don't need to be sedentary, and it's really not doing us a lot of good. I don't have a standing desk or a walking desk. I think I would find that distracting. I think if I'm writing, I just have to sit and I have to do it. I know Annabelle has a walking desk, which is like a very slow treadmill.
Gosh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, wow. And it's good, but she's got it in her basement. Takes quite a bit of space, and but she can put her it's got a sort of shelf that she puts her laptop on. And
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a really good thing. I suppose because she writes all the time. Perhaps I'm not doing that all the time. I just need to get in the zone when I'm writing. So that's what I try and focus on, and I try and then do that till 12. I might grab the breakfast I left downstairs soaking at some point, and then at 12 I try and get out again and do some of the other things that have probably built up during the morning, like emails and other things, and I'm coaching, and I'm goldstering, and I'm got other things kind of on the go, and so try and make time for that, and then at some point do some meditation, which is really, really important for our brains as we age, really important for mental health, but actually the infrastructure of our brain is really benefited by meditation. So I try and do at least 10 minutes, and I will always do a meditation called Kirtan Kriya, which is a chanted meditation. So it's quite embarrassing. I have to shut the doors, but it's really good for your brain. It sort of pumps blood to the brain. So I sort of try and do that before I get back to my desk about 3 for another kind of 3-hour block.
Excellent. So we've talked a little bit about food. There's a lot of emphasis on healthy anything, let alone healthy aging, about what we eat. Is this really the best way to start? I mean, are there certain foods, you've mentioned things like chia seeds and soaking oats and things. Are there any foods that we should all be eating? And are there any real no-nos that we should absolutely avoid that can lead to dementia or can lead to other problems when you get older that your body can't cope with as well?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I think that there are a lot of things other than diet and nutrition which are really important to aging well, but I think diet and nutrition is a good place to start, and it makes a lot of sense to people. And certainly for Annabelle and I, when we started, we really thought that it was really a food related blog, and it was when my mother was diagnosed with dementia, I thought, well, if I get my eating right, then I'll be okay. And then it's only as we were going along that I realised all the other things that are worth doing too. But food is a really good place to start, and I would say the number one thing we need to be thinking about is eating more vegetables, making at least half our plate vegetables. And I know everyone knows we need to eat more veg, but actually it's really it's changing our mindset about meals and thinking and what we're eating, thinking about what are my veg, rather than, it's very easy to think, oh, I've got some chicken in the fridge, or I'm going to cook some tofu or something, but actually what are the veg I'm getting today, what's the veg in this meal, and then adding the other things almost as a condiment. Leafy greens, absolutely vital. Again, particularly for brain health, people who eat lots of greens have younger brains. Simple as that. So rethinking how we view vegetables. They're not a side dish, they're not on the edge of the plate, they should be the main part of the plate. I've got a plate I can show you.
Oh, do, yes. I'm totally with you on this. I love my vegetables.
Okay, this really ugly plate is it's a really good illustration of sort of how it's like half vegetables, and then it's a quarter protein and a quarter carbohydrate, of which some can be veg, like sweet potatoes. So it's really kind of thinking about quantities in that way, that we don't need a lot of carbohydrate. We do need lots of vegetables, and some protein, which is really important as we get older. But yeah, the veg.
And are there any things that we really should be avoiding? Are there things that are just your enemy as you're aging in terms of foods, or is it just too individual for that?
I think research shows that ultra processed foods, foods which contain ingredients which our grandmothers or great grandparents would not have recognized, things which we do not have in our own kitchens. I mean, if you look at some of the ingredients on foods in the supermarket or your corner shop, there's a really long list of things, and you don't know what they are. You don't have them in your own kitchen, so why put them in your mouth? So those foods have been scientifically shown to increase weight gain beyond simply the calories. There's something in the way our body responds to those foods that makes them even less good for our health, other than just the sort of sugar or fat content. We tend to overeat them. There was a research project in which people were put in a house, two houses, something like it was sort of like Big Brother but with food, or Love Island, and they were given the same number of calories and fat and protein, but one was given a healthy diet and one was given a diet entirely of ultra processed foods. And the ones eating the ultra processed foods ate more and put on more weight, and then they swapped, and then the other lot who had been eating healthily then ate ultra processed foods, also put on more weight.
Interesting.
Ate more. And also really impacts gut. These foods impact gut health. They see, which is really important as we get older, they seem to feed the bad bacteria, the bad microbiota, and not the good.
And I think that's a really good rule of thumb. If you're looking, if you're in a supermarket and you're looking at ingredients and you don't know what that ingredient is, it's probably a good thing to avoid. I remember when I first went vegetarian when I was 12, my mum had to change the way that she shopped, and she was looking for things like gelatin and things that vegetarians don't eat. And she was shocked by things that she had previously thought were healthy foods at some of the ingredients, because they're things that people just bought all the time. But she said she hadn't realized how much extra stuff was put into what seems to be, a really normal process. And I think it does change when you've got some kind of dietary choice or restriction. You do start noticing these things. We have a question here. How do you manage hunger pangs? Good question.
Good question. I think my first question to myself is, am I thirsty? I think we're often quite dehydrated, and making sure that I'm having enough water, and particularly if it's in the morning and I'm trying to extend my fast, I'll make sure that I've had enough to drink. And if I have a coffee or a tea, actually I find that sort of helps me. And I think there is an element of having to ride it out. That's another thing, because actually I know from reading the research that having a restricted eating window is really important for my health as I age, and it's really important to help me reduce my risk of dementia. And so that's really important. So it's what is more important? Do I want to eat this thing, or do I want to give myself another hour before I eat, because that's an important part of how I am aging well. Having said that, you might just be hungry. When did you last eat? What did you last eat? And I've really reduced the amount of sugar and refined carbohydrate in my diet, so I don't get those sort of peaks and troughs in quite the same way. But I think it's really kind of stepping away from the pang and thinking, why is it happening? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Or can I just look at it and wait and ride it out for a bit because something else is more important?
Good. So what are your top 10 tips? Let's just get to the nub of it. Your top 10 tips for aging well that we can all learn from.
Okay, so my first most important one is believe you can change the way you age. You can make a difference with your lifestyle. It's not set in stone. It's very rare that genetic conditions are so strong that will definitely happen to you, even if, like me, you can see your mother, your grandmother with dementia. I know I carry an increased risk of Alzheimer's because I have a genetic predisposition. I carry the ApoE4 gene, which has been shown to be a risk factor. But I still believe that I can change the way I age. It's that mindset, number one, most important thing. And a really important step along that route is finding purpose. The first section of the plan is about really focusing in on what is your purpose as you're getting older. What What do you want to age well for? Who do you want to age well for? What is your age well life going to look like? What's it going to feel like when you've got the health to do what you want as you get older, be it traveling or reading or writing, or what is the thing that drives you? So that that's really, really important. Number 3, we've talked about eating more vegetables, and it's just it's so simple, and everyone's like, oh, I know that, but it's actually doing it. One of my mantras is berries, greens. So berries obviously are a fruit, but actually if you're making sure that if you're having 3 meals a day, got those 3 words, berries, greens, are you putting berries in your breakfast or in 1 meal a day? Are you making sure that you're having green veg in 2 meals a day? So that might be some spinach with some scrambled eggs for breakfast. It doesn't matter about the order, but you thinking about that for every meal?
To remember, easy for everyone to remember.
Yeah. I run a course called Eat Well to Age Well, and I always talk about berries, greens, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's really stuck. So that's good. And actually, my 4th tip is the intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, because I think that again is something to focus on rather than worrying too much about. I find with some of my one-to-one clients, they get very kind of deep into the weeds of, well, coconut water, can I have that? Should I dilute it? It's actually, if you something like a time restricted eating window is it's just a really powerful thing to do, and stops you getting too wound up in the am I eating the right thing all the time. Exercise we haven't really talked about, but that exercise, any exercise, absolutely vital. And I would say the most important thing is working out with weights, a weighted workout in some form, however that works for you. That might be sitting in a chair with small hand weights or tins of baked beans, or it might be pumping iron in the gym, wherever you are. But actually, as we get older, we lose muscle, and we have to try and build and maintain it, not just for muscle's sake, but it helps support our bones, which are more vulnerable as we get older. People who keep working on muscle strength throughout later life actually have better cognition. So some sort of weighted workout, be that body weight or some other weights, really important. Sleep is absolutely critical, obviously, and we talked about getting light in the morning. I think that's really important. And the other thing, the other end of the scale is dark evenings. So light mornings and dark evenings, and making sure that we are not staring at a screen or at a phone until late in the evening, and keeping the lights fairly dim. I mean, obviously you have to be able to see your way around your home, but not overstimulating ourselves with lots of light, because electric light has a lot of blue light, and we want that from the sun in the morning. We don't want artificial light in the evening. It's junk light. We're talking about sort of junk food, ultra processed food. Actually, ultra processed light, particularly at night, is not good for us. It's not what we were designed to be seeing. And also, we have to focus on mental stimulation, how we are in the world, mental and social engagement, and staying curious, learning new things, asking yourself, what's my new thing? What have I done today that's different? What have I learned this week? Being constantly curious and engaged with the world is as important, if not more important, really, than what we eat and how we move. So that's really vital, and I think Goldster is so brilliant for that, because there are so many opportunities like this to learn about a new book, or learn to paint, or do French, or so many things. So Goldster is so well set up for that. And also, I suppose the flip side of that is tackling stress, because that is such a drain on our mental and emotional health. It has a physical impact in the body. It causes inflammation, and inflammation is what we really want to avoid as we get older. That inflammation and aging are so closely linked that researchers have coined the term inflammaging, and we want, and also, if we can reduce the stress in our body, that's really important, which is why I focus on meditation and try and carve out a bit of time for that each day. Your environment is also really important. Being aware of the environment in which you're aging, and that is everything from cleaning products and personal care products. Are they as non-toxic as they can be? What can you do to avoid pollution? And I know that's really hard. We're all surrounded by pollution all the time. Reducing plastics. We're all ingesting a lot of microplastics. So it's being conscious of that, that it's not just about our own bodies, but what's around us. And I think the other thing, my final tip is really that knowledge is power, and that is both knowing your own body, keeping track of things like if you go to the doctors and they've got one of those blood pressure machines, or they test your blood pressure at the doctors or the gym, keep a note of it. Have a folder on your computer somewhere where you've got, or in a journal or whatever works, you've got a list of these things, and maybe keep a track of your weight without being obsessive about it, or cholesterol levels, anything that you get tested. Keep a note. You know your body, know your own body. That's really important, and keep learning about health and longevity and what's going to work. And in my Age Well class on Goldster, that I'm talking about the latest research into aging well. And yesterday I was talking about some of the books that I've read that have helped me. And so keep learning about what's going to help you age well.
So just tell us quickly, for those who don't know, when is your class on Goldster?
My class is Thursdays at 6 p.m. on Goldster. So yes.
Brilliant. So we've got a couple of comments here. Somebody said a variety of different coloured veg as well.
Yes, absolutely. Green's number one. Number two, coloured vegetables. Eat the rainbow, as they say, is really vital, because all those colours in red onions or red peppers or peas or whatever, it's nature's way of signalling to us that these foods are full of polyphenols, to really good for our bodies. The colour is what's actually good for us.
So somebody else has said they didn't know you were on Goldster, and they're going to look out for you. So that's good to know. And please do tell people in all your classes, everybody, about the book club as well. And somebody has suggested that at dinner time, you start eating the vegetables on your plate, then you eat the proteins, and finally the carbs. What's your advice? Do you agree with that?
I have seen that. That's a way of trying to keep the glucose peak more shallow, so you're not having this sort of rush of insulin. Your body's able to manage the carbohydrates, which are the easiest thing to digest. So it's starting with the things that's more difficult to digest, the fibre in plants and the protein. So yes, you start with the chicken salad and then have a piece of bread afterwards. It makes sense. It's not something I have gone into in a lot of detail, because it's quite specific about glucose and insulin response. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
So everyone's kind of worrying at the moment. I think I've seen lots of articles and people discussing it about what's been happening to their bodies during lockdown. We've all put on weight, and can we get ourselves back to pre-lockdown fitness levels? So if there's anybody who feels they just can't manage to change their fitness, that it's been going on for too long now, bad patterns are ingrained, what are your ideas for just simply incorporating more movement into everyday life?
I would say number one, don't think you can't get your fitness back, because you can. And number two, don't beat yourself up about it, but incorporating more movement. Yes, just try and set yourself some sort of routine of walking or running, or Goldster is this fantastic tool. There are so many exercise classes. If there's one that you like that is quite difficult, don't be afraid to challenge yourself without obviously injury. But you try things. The great thing about Goldster, there's so much you can try. If you hate it, you just switch it off. It's not like you've gone to the gym. So just try and think, well, actually, I really liked that class on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. So I'll do it again. Try and create routine and habit, because once we're in that habit, everything just becomes much easier. But also try and look at some of the other things which are really important for our health, like trying new things or music, or other things which don't sort of have the same physical toll. Try and see it holistically.
And someone has said, I can highly recommend Susan's classes. I've had to miss them recently due to family events, but hope to be back this week. That's great, Ruth. Thank you. So you've been doing Goldster classes since last year. So have you learned anything from your Goldster community? Have they taught you things?
Yes, and I think actually the most important thing is that word you used, community, because community, being part of a tribe, I talk about the Goldster tribe quite a lot. It's really, really important, and it's so good to see how people support each other and give each other advice and say, oh, I tried this and I tried that, and they'll say, oh, that sounds good, I'll try that. I think that community, what I've really learnt is the power of community and how positive that is.
Brilliant, thank you. I've just put in the chat, everybody, I've put the link to Susan's own website and to both of her books, the Age Well Plan and the Age Well Project. I know you focus very much on post-menopause, and we're hearing a lot in the media at the moment about the menopause itself, which is something that never used to be discussed. And I think like many women, I think, wow, it's great that people are actually talking about this. When you're coming up to menopause, you can find out more than you've ever been able to find out before. If you're in menopause, you feel supported, but you're focusing on post-menopause. Why do you think that's important?
So this is the new book. The book I'm writing at the moment is about postmenopausal health. And the reason I think that is important is, as you say, there is now so much focus, rightly, and it's really good. And there are still a lot of women not getting the help they need. But there is a focus on what is being called the menopause revolution. And that's a really good thing. More women are getting knowledge and getting support, and that's fantastic. The reason I'm interested in post-menopausal health is that once we get through menopause, we, as a rule, tend to start to feel better. There is a life after menopause, and that life is really built on a foundation of good health. If you think about it, we live pretty much half our adult life post-menopause. We reach adulthood at 18, the average age of menopause is 51, and the average life expectancy for women in the UK is just about 83. So that's 33 years from reaching adulthood to menopause, and 32 years from average menopause to the end of the average life expectancy. That's half our adult life, which people aren't really talking about and thinking about. But if we want to enjoy it, and of course we do, because we may actually have been able to put aside some of our caring responsibilities and some of the pressures of work as we sort of get through this time, we need a foundation of good health to make the most of it. So that's why I think it's important.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a really great comment here. Re-putting on weight, listening to Claudia each week has been wonderful, as has been doing Goldster exercise classes. I've lost half a stone, I think, mainly by having our main meals at lunchtime.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a really good idea, because that then you've got more digestion time, and you're not sort of going to bed having had a heavy meal, and our insulin, which helps us deal with glucose, and melatonin, which helps us get to sleep, kind of run on the same pathways, and they can't run at the same time. And the body will always emphasize dealing with the food, as I was saying. It's always going to deal with the glucose first. So if you're trying to digest when you go to bed, you're not going to sleep as well, and then you're going to want more snacks the next day. So actually, eating at lunchtime is eating a main meal at lunchtime is a really good idea.
Yeah, thank you everyone for this. And do remember, you can put questions in the chat. We've got a few more minutes. I'm just going to quickly tell everyone what's coming up on the book club, and we'll come back with some more questions for Susan just after that. So next week, on the 7th of April, on Thursday, Humphrey is going to be talking to the Indian author Namita Gokhale, who also helped to found the Jaipur Literature Festival. And her latest novel is called The Blind Matriarch, which is a family saga told from the viewpoint of a blind grandmother living on the top floor of a rambling house shared with her large extended family. And it's looking at what was happening in India during the COVID pandemic. So it's very much a novel of the moment. And then next Friday, I'm going to be interviewing the novelist Thomas Mogford, writing as T.L. Mogford. So under the name of Thomas Mogford, he wrote a series of crime novels about a man called Spike Sanguinetti, who was a lawyer in Gibraltar, but he's just become kind of reinvented himself as the author of a brand new historical novel called The Plant Hunter. I'm halfway through and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's great fun. It kind of takes you from the world of the kind of Victorian plant nurseries in London, and then traveling for people trying to find these exotic plants. Really interesting. And then the week after that, on the 14th of April, and I'm particularly excited about this. So for any of you there who are a fan of the Comic Strip Presents or the Young Ones or any of those kind of iconic 1980s comedy shows, you're going to know the name Nigel Planer. And Nigel Planer, I think, is most well known as Neil the Hippie in the Young Ones. He's also an excellent playwright. I've actually been, a few years ago, I went to see a couple of his plays performed. Really interesting, very well written, really good plays. And he's also written plays for radio, he's recorded books for audio, and he's currently writing a novel called Jeremiah Born in Time. And he's really great fun. I had a prep chat with him last week, and I can't wait to get him onto Goldster. In fact, I know he's been coming along to some Goldster classes. So I'm really thrilled about that. So we've got lots of exciting things coming up. And just to tell you as well about PPG. So for PPG on the 12th of April, I am going to be interviewing Sasha Bates, who is a psychotherapist and a grief specialist. And I'm really looking forward to interviewing her. It's going to be a really amazing journey with her. She became a widow very young at 49, very unexpectedly. And she was already a psychotherapist, and she's written 2 books about helping people through grief. One is called The Grief Companion. So do join us for PPG on Tuesdays as well. And of course, for those of you who don't know, this is your first book club, we have book club every Thursday and Friday at midday. So come along and join us and tell all your friends and other people who are on Goldster. So Susan, so I'm just having a quick look in the chat. Someone says, I bought Susan's books on Kindle, but found it difficult to fast forward to the recipes. Then finding the page I was on, would recommend it as the book form rather than Kindle. Of course, that is the problem with ebooks, is that it's always quite difficult going back and forth. I know people found that with our last book of the month, The Appeal, because you had to keep going back to the kind of cast of characters. And it was much more difficult on Kindle than in book form. Obviously, that's often something to think about. And then someone says, I try to do exercises, but maybe food is my weakness. I lose and then put on weight again. Do you know, I think you're not alone in that. I think there's many of us here empathizing with you there. Thank you for putting that in the chat. What do you have anything to say about that, Susan, at all?
Well, I would say thank you for your honesty. And I think being aware of that is the most important thing. And are you able to look at at what point does the weight go on again? What changes? I think I was talking about, knowledge is power, and knowing your own body. What changes when you lose some weight? What happens? Do you kind of go, oh great, I can relax a bit. So I think it's being aware of that change, being aware of, really drill down. I'm not here to give you an eating plan. I would say know your body and really drill down into what changes, what you track it. tracking things is really important. You track where those changes happen and what you've done differently at that point.
Which is, again, as you said earlier, one of the most important things of aging is getting to know your body medically, and your own kind of weaknesses or traits or things that you're really good at and can build on.
Yeah.
So you, as you said, got your literary agent for the first time at the age of 50 and then started writing your books. So to finish with, do you have any tips, any advice for anyone who wants to start writing and who's thinking, oh, I'd quite like to emulate what she's done?
I would say know your niche. I think because as I said at the beginning, I started with the blog, and I started with something I was really passionate about, and I didn't consider myself to be a writer. I didn't set out with the ambition to be a writer. I set out with the ambition of helping myself and then helping others age well, and the books came along. So it be really sure on what you're passionate about and what it is you want to share with the world. What do you want to be doing? And if it feels like hell to be doing the research, then that you might not be quite in the right niche. It doesn't mean you can't write, but it's finding the thing you really, really care about. And writing is tough, and it's hard. You find the routines that will make you sit and write, because as I said, I'm not a natural writer. Annabelle just writes and writes and writes and writes and writes. You know, I don't. I have to really focus and really set time. It doesn't make me less of a writer. It's, you know, we're all different. It's fine what works for you.
And we could have a panel of 100 authors here, and they would all say that their style of writing, their time of writing, how much they write every day, it would all be totally different. Yeah. So there's no one thing that makes you a writer other than writing. I would really say that, it's just everybody's style.
And go for it. I'd say I didn't see myself as a writer, and it's sort of happened, and it's happened through hard work and knowing what it was that I cared about. So you just do it. You don't have to have a degree in English or this or that. Just do it.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your comments and questions. And somebody has said, I recently had a huge shock, which threw me back on all my good work on myself. But today's session is going to get me back on track. So thank you. So that's really great.
Yes, and just getting on track and just working out what your track is and just keep going. That's brilliant. Well done.
Well, you've inspired me as well, Susan. I think, like many people, I've been finding, the lockdown has been really bad. I've used to do much more exercise. I used to swim 2 or 3 times a week. And of course, I've been too scared to go to a pool and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of us are feeling we need this. So I think these are the books you need. It's your plan. Start your 6 weeks now. and of course the Age Well project as well. And of course you can catch Susan's classes on Thursdays. Lots of classes on Goldster. So if this has made you think, oh, I didn't know that was on, do look and see what else is on as well, because Goldster's got so many different things happening all the time. So check the website, look at the all classes thing, and sometimes maybe just once a week look and think, oh, I might be able to do something different this week, or maybe I'll try a new form of exercise or whatever. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along today, particularly as where I am, at least. It's lovely and sunny again. Yay. Mind you, did everyone have snow yesterday? It was completely bizarre. I was doing some filming actually for Goldster, and I stepped out, I was near St. Paul's Cathedral, stepped out onto the street, bright blue sky, freezing cold, and then it started snowing over St. Paul's Cathedral. It was really amazing. And that just actually felt really kind of vibrant and awakening to be walking through all these crazy weather patterns. So maybe everybody should get outside today, whatever the weather's doing, and go for a walk after this class.
Exactly. Get that light. Get that light in your eyes. And also the novelty of being, I was talking about novelty, the novelty of being St. Paul's and seeing snow. You were helping yourself age well just by doing that.
And enjoying the sunshine, and make the most of today, everybody, and have a lovely weekend. I and Susan are just going to turn off our screens in a minute, and Stephanie will put up a quick poll for you. We've just had a comment here also recommending Susan's classes, very uplifting and encouraging. Love your sessions too, Lucinda. Thank you very much. Many thanks to you both. I agree, it is freezing. Yeah, if you're going to go out, do wrap up warm. And everybody take care. So yes, we're going to just turn off our screens, and Stephanie will put up the poll, and do come along next week to both mine and Susan's classes if you can. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much, Lucinda. Thank you.
Thanks for being a great interviewee.
Thank you.